Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, April 13th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we do get started, guys, we do try to be a family-friendly podcast. We do try to watch your language, but words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too graphic for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, not a lot that we have a lot to go into in the middle of the week, but I want to bring back an oldie but a goodie. Remember this story?
Yeah, the footage shows me attacking his son. Of attacking him how? Yelling at him? Yes. Okay, I apologize. Can we move on?
This is my phone.
You don't have to explain nothing to her. Are you kidding me? You feel like there's only one iPhone made in the world?
Then show me the proof. No, he's not leaving. Show me the proof.
Are you kidding me? You better get on. Let's go, kid. Get on. We have what you see two black people.
No, I'm not letting him walk away with my phone.
I want my son to grow up whole.
That's right.
That's all we want. And I can't even come downstairs in New York City, prime New York City, and just go get brunch without being attacked and wrongfully accused of something.
I don't know what would have happened if my dad wasn't there, honestly. But why would you do something like this to a kid who has never met you at all?
You seem to have attacked this little boy, this young boy, his teenager. You seem to have attacked this teenager about the phone, and then it turned out he didn't even have your phone. That's the thing. I mean, you're saying, look, I'm 22 years old. You're 22 years old, but you are old enough to know better. So I will say you're 22. I get it.
Enough.
Remember that wonderful blast from the past? The one person that literally told Gail King, well, zip it, Gail. We're not having this, Gail. The same person, I never can pronounce her name. I just call her a young Karen in training. Maya Ponsetto. For all those guys that don't remember, this was almost 2 years ago where she did accuse a young black man of having her phone, which turns out that she left her phone with an Uber driver, which was found out later, in which she still felt like she did not, well, as you can tell from the video, have very little remorse. Why are we talking about that? We're talking about that because just now, as you've probably seen before, they did go ahead and convict her of a felony hate crime. Basically, and I guess, how can I put this ever so nicely? She's currently on a probationary case. It's kind of rough to talk about. It's kind of rough to say it, but let's just be honest. She actually accepted a plea deal, which allows the probation terms for a separate case, because she had two cases, one in California, one in New York, where she could attend counseling and avoid other criminal incidents. If that probation was broken, she could go to prison for up to 4 years. However, if she successfully completes the probation, she can replead the felony charge to a misdemeanor charge of aggravated harassment of the second degree. Now, you're probably wondering, why is that relevant? Well, for anybody that's ever had a felony, it's a little difficult for you in life to get anything. Once you are a felony, you are a Fed, which means that, well, life becomes more difficult for you. Don't believe me? Ask those who are felons. They can tell you the same. And now Ms. Ponsetto, for the next couple of years, will count herself among them. However, the downside is just that if she does complete a probationary case, she could replead, and that felony could be downgraded to a misdemeanor. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's like, yeah, it seems like she's still good. Even though, for some fact of the matter, it still sounds like she got off easy. It really does. Because how else was she able to literally say all that, go on multiple television shows, and talk about the fact of, well, no one asked him, no one did this. It was almost like she doesn't get responsibility. Could the judge been a little bit? Could the judge be a little harsh on the sentencing? On the sentencing, he could have, but at the same time, I'm more surprised by the prosecutors offering her a plea deal, considering the fact that she was just convicted on a secondary felony hate crime. That's the part where I'm a little lost on, because why she should be a felon. The whole excuse was she's 22. Yes, she's an adult. She's an adult. She decided that this was her hill to die on. She decided that she was going to literally accuse this young man of doing something that he obviously did not do. She should stick with her crimes. The fact that she can go back and have a mulligan in a couple of years doesn't really fit the program, because another young black man is being slowly reminded that the world will view him for his skin color and not for his person. As all these Republicans love to say whenever they quote MLK. Well, like the great Martin Luther King said, we should not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Republicans love leaning on MLK, and we start realizing that, I almost want to feel like Anita Montoya from The Princess Bride and goes, you keep using those phrases. I don't think you know what it means. Especially for the simple fact of the matter is, what did young Karen learn from all this? That yes, if you have the right lawyer, yes, if you have the means to basically get yourself a wonderful plea deal, that as long as you keep your nose clean for 2 years, everything goes back to the way it was. You're no longer considered a felon, and life is great for you. But as the black man who was accosted, you can't erase a memory. You can't erase the impression that the world will, like you said, if it wasn't for his dad being there, I wonder would it have been a different story. Because again, whenever a black man's involved, and I keep saying this all the time, black men, for those who are watching, who are listening to this, you always have to think forward. You have to think 5 to 10 steps ahead. Think about where you're going. Think about your interactions. Think about, everything so far ahead. Why? Because you never know when that situation will be you. And trust me, they will never, ever be in your favor. But yeah, I still feel like going back to Miss Young Karen right there, she got off easy. I think the secondary felony hate crime should be stuck with her. You ought to be. It's like the Scarlet Letter. It's almost as if, like someone said, the rules are suggestions for them and rules for us. But I still feel like, even though with all that being said, even though she basically got the world's attention for a little while, it just feels like, yeah, she still got off easy. Moving right along, guys. I always keep on saying this about media, because a lot of people say, well, the media's doing this, the media's doing that. And I keep on saying, stop watching Fox News. So somebody decided to do a scientific experiment and take some people who used to watch Fox News and let them watch CNN and see if their opinion changed. Well, here's the results.
News viewers change their minds about key issues just by having them change the channel. That's what a new study suggests. It's titled The Manifold Effects of Partisan Media on Viewers' Beliefs and Attitudes. The researchers paid some Fox News fans to watch CNN for 30 days, and then they asked them some questions. The results are fascinating. So let's bring in David Brockman and Joshua Calla. They conducted the study in September of 2020, and it's just been published this week. Welcome to you both. Let's not waste any time. David, what did you find?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. So what we did is we recruited a fairly large group of people who predominantly watched Fox News up until September 2020. And in September 2020, we paid them to watch CNN instead at the time at which they usually watch Fox News. And then afterwards, we asked them a variety of questions about what they knew about the world and their attitudes about current events and people like Donald Trump. That was during the Trump presidency, of course. And I think the real key finding here from our perspective is essentially that we find that partisan media is sort of hiding information from voters. And I think there's kind of an analogy to Putin's Russia, where right now Russians, we know, are not getting all the information about what's actually happening in Ukraine. And in the same way that we found during the Trump presidency, those watching Fox News weren't getting all the information about what was really happening, for example, with COVID and otherwise in the Trump administration, that then they started seeing on CNN. They said, oh, wow, I had no idea. I didn't know all this because Fox News wasn't telling me.
So, Josh, you all call this partisan coverage filtering. And basically, you're proving what we've sensed for a while, which is Fox viewers are in the dark about bad news for the GOP.
That's right. Fox and CNN cover different issues, and Fox News predominantly covers issues that make the GOP look good and make Democrats look bad. And on the flip side, CNN engages in this partisan coverage filtering as well that we find. For example, during this time, the Abraham Accords were signed, and these were the agreements where Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain signed a major peace agreement. And we see that Fox News covered this really major accomplishment about 15 times more than CNN did. So we established both networks are really engaged in this partisan coverage filtering. It's not about one side, it's about the media writ large.
I think you're engaging in some both sides in there, Josh.
Not trying to lay out a moral equivalency. It's not about what an objective standard is. It's really about how all networks do engage in this. And in order for viewers to get a realistic picture of the world, we need viewers to see all types of information. And unfortunately, what we find in this study is that the viewers don't want to engage in watching all sides. So as David mentioned, we see that viewers, we pay them for 4 weeks to watch CNN, but then after those payments stop, they go back to watching Fox News. So even though we try to incentivize viewers to watch both Fox and CNN, they don't want to engage in that hard work. They want to really just...
So long story short, because I thought that was an interesting experiment. I thought it was an interesting experiment just because they wanted to see if they could change people's opinions. Now, keep in mind, in the golden age of television, you really only had, ABC, NBC, and CBS News for the longest time. Those are the big three, ABC, NBC, and CBS. The three original broadcasting companies before they split off and you had Fox News, HLN, and so far and so forth, to the craziness of Newsmax, The Blaze, the Daily Beast, and all them. But again, we had initially 3 news cycles. Now, 3 news cycles, they were all the same. Everybody reported the same. Everybody, same stuff, same times, different time zones. True, different times of periods, different stories reporters were covering, but still, there was little animosity between what you could watch, up until money and advertising came into place. Now, I keep on saying this, guys. Whenever I say do your own research, I mean by don't always take, and I say this with all certainty in the world, don't ever take one source of news. I mean, when I was studying journalism, there's one thing that I did learn from it that I still tell everybody. Always find more than one source to corroborate the story, or find one more source to corroborate what's going on. Because what winds up happening is that we get these individuals that literally and figuratively could turn around and kind of drive the story a little bit. And what I mean by that is that Fox News is a great example of this. That Fox News has learned if they go hard conservative, if they go ultra hard conservative, then that means that they can control the narrative. And you know what happens with a hard ultra conservatives? You get those with hard ultra conservatives views, and they stick to Fox News. Why? Fox News has realized those are money makers. Those people right there will watch Fox News religiously. They will take everything they spoon feed them and they'll run with it. Now, the same could be argued for MSN, ABC, and NBC and CBS. And also, I did mention CNN. I may have mentioned CNN beforehand. But what I'm saying is they tend to take this, and again, I say CNN did this post-Trump because when Trump was running for his election, CNN couldn't stop talking about Trump. I was amazed at how much coverage Trump was getting from CNN to the point to where it wasn't up until Trump had coined the term fake news and pointed at CNN that CNN made a point to kind of go this facts-based journalism, which it really wasn't doing beforehand. But when a presidential candidate calls your network fake news, it tends to light a fire under somebody's ass. The same with the MSNBC, which again, one of my favorite channels to watch for multiple reasons. For Joy Reid, for Rachel Maddow, at one point Hardball with Chris Matthews, and so many others on there because I like their points of views. But that goes back into what I just said. It fits my point of view. So I try not to be narrow-minded, except when it comes to Fox News, because let's be honest, Fox News at this point might as well be propaganda. And that's the thing that people fall into when they get comfortable, which is the whole point of that experiment. Because as the man was saying at the end of it all, that yes, once they stopped getting paid, they just simply went back to what they felt comfortable. So really what we get out of all that is find more than one source, as long as it's reputable. Because, Trump and the alternative facts group have made it easy to question facts. But the thing about facts is when facts are true, they're undisputable. And it used to be a point where journalism was held to such a standard that such facts were undisputable. But the simple fact of the matter, it's just that it just goes to show you there are people that are running to their comfort zones. But just like here on How the Frack We Got Here, we report the news. Like I said, we go after Democrats, Republicans, we go after everybody. Our opinion is rated E for everyone because everyone can get it. Because people have heard me talk about Republicans all the time, but you've also heard me talk about the Democrats too. But again, that's the whole point of having a clear objectionable point of view. You always can't be comfortable with Fox News. You always can't be comfortable with NBC. But I'm just saying, the simple fact of the matter is, the truth is pretty much like Robitussin. Robitussin tastes nasty as hell, but it'll always make you feel better. Move right along, guys. I did want to cover this next story because, again, everything's going up but your paycheck. But what's amazing is they're still not saying what can be fixed.
Unrelenting inflation crisis keeps getting worse, with today's news that it's accelerated to 8.5%, a 41-year high. Prices surging across the board. Gas prices up 48% over last year. Food prices jumping nearly 9%, including meat, poultry, fish, and eggs spiking nearly 14%. Housing costs surging too, with rents up 5%. In Pennsylvania, school bus driver Renee Schultz says soaring grocery bills have left her struggling to feed her family. Now she's turning to a food pantry.
It's made it difficult. Sometimes you have to make a choice on, what bill's going to not get paid so that you can make sure that you got food on the table.
And in California, plumber Louis Ray says the cost of parts have surged 40 to 60%. What's the toughest part about this moment and the increased prices?
The toughest part is just not knowing what the future holds. Actually, I'm not just a business owner. I'm a human being. I have a household. I have a car note.
And today, a new government forecast predicts gas prices this summer will be the highest since 2014. Today in Iowa, President Biden saying he's boosting the sale and production of ethanol-blended gasoline as a way to alleviate pain at the pump. And again, blaming Vladimir Putin's Ukraine invasion.
I'm doing everything within my power, my executive orders, to bring down the price and address the Putin price hike.
But in reality, inflation has been soaring above 5% for nearly a year. And our latest NBC News poll shows just 6% of Americans blame rising prices on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. 38% blame President Biden and his policies. Today, the president facing criticism from Republicans and a key Democrat. Senator Joe Manchin writing, the Federal Reserve and the administration failed to act fast enough, calling the response, quote, half measures. But the White House is touting signs of economic strength, including good jobs numbers, a low unemployment rate, and a 23-cent decline in gas prices over the last month. Still, all of it overshadowed by soaring inflation.
Yes, soaring inflation. Soaring inflation, but they still didn't address the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is inflation's going up, but corporate profits are happening everywhere. Inflation is going up, but again, Wall Street, corporations, and certain companies are having a wondrous payday. Gas prices are going up. And I've seen a lot of people do this. I've seen a lot of people say this, well, can't really complain about the gas prices. I mean, what you going to do what's your alternative? Walk? Well, here's the thing, and I keep saying this all the time, that of course, you can always sit there and say that, yes, you can't complain about gas prices because, again, what can be done about them? Like, what kills me is that the president says, I am doing everything humanly possible. But there's a problem. I mean, you have some politicians asking for a windfall profits tax to be placed in these companies, which again, I'll put these oil companies, which again are making buku bucks. And I do mean they are making a profit, which goes to tell you that yes, they at this point are price gouging us. They are draining us dry because right now it is Christmas in April for them. At the same time, we're not taking away their subsidiaries. Some of these oil companies are still getting subsidiaries from the US government, and yet they're still not being pulled. So again, two things right there that would generate revenue to be put back for the American people from these oil and gas companies. Biden's quiet. Manchin can't really talk anyway because Manchin's a walking conflict. I keep saying this all the time. His state, West Virginia, is a coal state. Coal is a dying industry. But let them tell it. They think they can bring back clean coal. And the thing about clean coal is it costs too much to make versus the old-fashioned way. But Manchin sitting there saying that they've done too little, too late to help the American people is kind of hypocritical considering the fact that he, along with Sinema, torpedoed the Democratic progressive agenda single-handedly. But you're going to talk about something being done too little, too late. But also another thing they did point out is that, Biden's not going to issue executive orders for a windfall profits tax. He's not going to issue an executive order to have basically to have subsidiaries removed from these oil companies. You know what he's going to do? You know what he's going to wind up doing? Well, I hate to say this, but he's kind of pulling one out the Trump playbook. He's going to farmers.
We're not just learning and leaning on our reserves and our allies and partners to help bring down gas prices and to power the nation. We're leaning on you, our farmers, our biofuel refiners. Today, I'm announcing that the environmental, and I don't think it's much of an announcement, it's already broken out pretty much the last 24 hours, but the Environmental Protection Agency is planning to issue an emergency waiver to allow E15 gasoline that uses more ethanol from homegrown crops to be sold across the United States this summer in order to increase fuel supply. And folks, thank you. I feel like as a minister, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. But here's what it means. E15 is about 10 cents a gallon cheaper than E10. And some gas stations offer an even bigger discount than that. But many of the gas stations that sell it here in Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania are required to stop selling in the summer. But with this waiver, on June 1, you're not going to show up at your local gas station and see a bag over the pump that has the cheapest gas. You're going to be able to keep filling up with E15, and it's going to solve the whole problem. But it's not going to solve all our problems, but it's going to help some people. And I'm committed to whatever I can to help, even if it's an extra buck or two in the pockets that they fill up will make a difference in people's lives. And even though E15 is only available in a few thousand pumps today, we're investing more than $100 million to build biofuel infrastructure of the future.
So here's the problem with this. Again, for all those that don't know, between E10 and E15, these are all ethanol produced fuels. Now, initially, when they first came out during the Bush 2.0 administration, it wasn't a bad idea. The problem is that the oil and gas companies killed it, especially through the lobbying through politicians to sit there and say that this is not feasible, that this will cost more than what we're actually getting out of it. And now Biden, again, because he won't do what should have been done a long time ago, is to finally get us off the dinosaur juice. That is the problem. That is the problem with the American capitalism machine as we see it. It is ran on dinosaur juice. The problem is with dinosaur juice, also known as fossil fuels, has a definite end date, which means that eventually we are going to run out of this stuff. And even then, what happens? because unfortunately, our airplanes, our trains, our automobiles, almost all forms of transportation, and even some things that like our generators, power service stations, and things of that nature, still run on gasoline. The problem is going to be what is the alternative energy plan going forward, since we do know that burning gasoline is definitely not environmentally friendly. To the fact that he had to bring back E10, which keep in mind can't be done this summer for certain volatile capacities. Leave it to you to find that one out. But again, guys, this is the thing that always bothers me about Biden. It's like there's this disconnect where he's like, well, I don't care if it may cost a few dollars to pay to pump a little bit more. You should. These are your voters. These are your constituents. And this is why I keep saying, guys, as we approach the midterms, we are 5 months and counting away from the midterms. I keep saying, Democrats, we just saw them get one win. We saw them get one win, getting the Honorable Kajani Brown Jackson in as a Supreme Court justice on a single party vote, including three Republicans out of the rest of them. Three Republicans voted to confirm Jackson. The others did not. Democrats, you got one win, but keep in mind, you still have a lot of failures out there. You've only addressed half of the student loan debt issue. I mean, yes, you did put in some things that allowed some people to get their loans forgiven, but not everyone. You haven't raised the minimum wage. We're still sitting at $7.29 an hour. The Build Back America plan is still somewhere between the Senate and Biden's desk. You thoroughly killed the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Act, and the George Floyd Police Reform Act. All three of those bills, which would have major effects on our society, those three bills are dead. But Democrats, because y'all got one win, this is not time to do the victory lap. Like I said before, Democrats are going to have a harder time this year trying to get voters to convince them to give them another run with a single party majority, or giving them the House and Senate again, versus Republicans who are going to depend on idiots to basically have a short-term amnesia problem to vote for them again. Because Republicans' main job this entire midterm is to either disrupt the Senate or disrupt the House. If they can do one of each, mission accomplished. If they get both, that's a great day. Because why? Either way, that usurps the Democrats' control. But again, like I said, Democrats this year are going to have a harder time trying to convince individuals than Republicans will be trying to convince idiots. Speaking of idiots, however, of course, we have to go back to Florida, the current king of the Hold My Beer competition, in which, of course, we know that now it's been a little over a week since Ron DeSantis has signed the Parental Rights and Education Bill, also known as the Don't Say Gay Bill, where one LGBTQ teen took it upon themselves to basically teach their class about Stonewall. And, well, this is what happened.
I'm a 17-year-old junior at Winter Park High School. I'm the president of my school's queer student union. I've testified in front of the Senate. I guess went viral on Twitter for presenting to my history class about Stonewall.
The Stonewall Uprising. Essentially, people were fed up with youth abuse, and Stonewall was the tipping point.
Started the queer student union to protect and empower kids at Winter Park, and one of my first ideas was we need to teach about Stonewall in classrooms. But we started the club right when the 2022 Florida's legislative session was started. The gay bill was filed, so that's kind of been the attention. We put the club's attention towards that, so we haven't been able to do that. I decided, I'm in my U.S. history class. The least I'll be able to do is teach my class. So I went up to my history teacher after a class. We were in the late 60s, early 70s, like Vietnam War, hippie protests, but the Stonewall Uprising happened in 1969. So I went up to my history teacher after class, and I was asked, are we going to learn about the Stonewall Uprising? Knowing damn well we weren't. I know it's not the scientific standards. I know she wasn't going to go out of her way to teach it. She didn't know what it was. And wow, that just speaks to how unfortunate our education system is. They don't even teach history teachers that, you know what I mean? It's something you really have to go out of your way to learn about. So I was like, this is my chance to at least educate my class. And she gave me the green light. She was like, thank you for educating me. I think it's great if you educate other people. And I, you know, she could have said no. She could have been like, no, but she gave me the space to teach this.
This cop was forcing this lesbian woman into a van and knocked her over the head, and she became unconscious. And that was the moment that people started throwing objects.
I taught it to the class, and I asked the girl who sits next to me to take a video of it. My original intention was just to post it on the Queer Student Union Instagram and be like, what we're doing. And then I was just like, I'll post it on Twitter. And then it blew up, and then I was profiled by the Washington Post, and here we are.
I was going through your Twitter, and I've just been seeing a ton of adults actually targeting you, and you are a minor. I thought your parents said anything about this, and what are your thoughts and your feelings on this right now?
Honestly, it doesn't affect me. I don't really care. They can do whatever they want. All they're doing is delegitimizing their parental rights movement. They're trying to say they're protecting kids and then attacking kids, and they're just making themselves look dumb, and I feel fine. So whatever, I don't really care. Do your thing. Mess up your messaging. I'm thriving.
You mentioned that you were sort of going to be under investigation. You were supposed to meet with your principal. What happened there?
I've been under investigation probably 10 times this year. I've never gotten a disciplinary infraction for any of these. I'm very outspoken about the homophobia that I face at my school, which is known within the district for being rich, white, homophobic, conservative.
It started with pennies and whatever you could find, but then it became bricks from Stonewall's Inn.
As I've gotten older, it's been more and more shocking how few, not just straight people, but like queer people know about events like Stonewall or the Violet Scare or Obergefell versus Hodges or really any other queer history.
Crazy, isn't it? All they were basically doing was taking a time to literally and figuratively teach history, give history. That's it. Because I knew about Stonewall. I knew about Stonewall because I had a great history teacher that taught me about Stonewall. And I was like, did not know that. And you'll be surprised because the education system here in the U.S., a lot of people don't know what Stonewall is. But the moment that they hear about history that isn't the sky blue, we came over here, we didn't do anything wrong, we kumbaya with everybody kind of BS history, if it doesn't jive with that, they freak out. I've said it best. It's amazing, like they didn't know that there are certain towns in Georgia that were basically black towns that got flooded because white people decided to build dams, basically create lakes. I mean, the one thing about it, I will say this, in Atlanta, if you guys don't watch Atlanta on FX, you really should. Donald Glover's a great writer. He covers that. He actually covers a little bit of that in his first episode, where he sat there and says, the whole thing about, these two gentlemen were fishing on a boat on this lake. And he goes, you do know that the lake we're sitting on right now used to be a town, and goes into a little bit of the history of it. Says it was a thriving, predominantly black town that white people saw and actually wanted to create a lake, so they built a dam to basically flood them. And it's crazy as that is in that situation, that's part of the history that they don't talk about. Like, they don't talk about the Tulsa massacres. They don't talk about they talk about civil rights, especially what happened in Selma, what happened in Alabama, what happened in Atlanta, what happened in Georgia and Tennessee and plenty of other places like that. But they lightly go over it. Why? Because they don't want to paint their previous ancestors and possibly grandparents in a bad light. But this individual decided to take it upon themselves to actually teach and encourage and educate, because that's the whole point to me of history. The whole point of me of history is, again, to learn to not do what happened in the past. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I say it all the time at the end of my podcast, because it's true. If we do not learn from previous events, those same events will occur again in our time. Why? Because we simply haven't learned. So I respect that individual for what they're doing. Of course, school's not going to say something. They're too busy hoping that Governor Sanders is going to bail them out because he's going to see it as indoctrination. Well, if that's the case, that's indoctrination. What do you call Christian schools? That being said, guys, we're going to keep it going, keep the boat going. Again, I keep saying this all the time. that no matter what in this day and age, how is it that we're in 2022 and women's rights are still being trampled upon?
Oklahoma, the battle over abortion access is reaching a tipping point.
We're kind of living in what is almost like a post-Roe environment. We could truly be providing abortions 24 hours a day and not meet the needs of people who already access our clinic.
These anti-abortion activists are frustrated as the state has seen an increase in demand from its neighbor, but they're energized by what feels like a looming victory.
We praise the Lord of God. The people are coming all the way from Texas, all the way from all kinds of states, all over the country, to pay to have their babies' arms and legs ripped off.
We do abortions. We are not currently scheduling for at least the first 2 weeks of April due to the bans passing in Oklahoma until we know if any of them are going to be washed.
Today, Oklahoma passed a bill criminalizing providers who perform abortions and is poised to soon pass one of the strictest anti-abortion bills in the country.
Would mean that no one could get abortion care here.
House Bill 4723 outlaws abortions right after conception, unless it's to save the life of the mother or if a pregnancy is the result of rape, sexual assault, or incest that's been reported to law enforcement. That law waiting for a vote in the state Senate. Right now, the state allows abortions up to 20 weeks, which makes it an abortion refuge for women from other states with more restrictive laws.
I'd say like a vast majority of our patients in our Oklahoma City clinic are from Texas.
Hi, this is Joy Antitrust from the Severability. Hi, need you to please come in so we can get you started.
Back in September, Texas passed SB 8, a law that bans abortions after 6 weeks and lets private citizens sue abortion providers or anyone who helps a woman get an abortion for up to $10,000. Since SB 8 passed, abortions in Texas dropped nearly 60%. But research from the University of Texas at Austin shows that in that same time period, the number of Texans going out of state to get abortions increased, with nearly half of them going to Oklahoma.
What we saw very immediately after SB 8 is we doubled our volume. So just so many patients traveling, which forced Oklahoma patients to have to find care elsewhere, right? They can't wait 3 weeks for an appointment either.
In the shadow of Oklahoma's State House, members of 40 Days for Life, an anti-abortion organization, are holding a prayer vigil outside Oklahoma City's Planned Parenthood.
Is to really to end abortion.
If the state legislature votes to enact these laws, are their prayers being answered? Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, says in many ways, yes.
Do you still count the bills as a win if women are just going elsewhere to get the abortions?
It's definitely a great start to a final victory, and we're in great position to when Roe v. Wade is overturned to set up those resources on the state lines. But it starts with a state, and then it spreads to a region. Well, the bills definitely reduce abortions. The abortion numbers go down. Some will choose to go out of state, but many don't.
Providers in Oklahoma say right now, these bills hurt those who can't afford to travel, take time off work, or arrange childcare to travel out of state for the care they seek. Not to mention making the procedure less safe.
Human beings will have abortions whether or not they're legal, so we might as well help them have safe care, in the communities where they live.
It's not just Oklahoma. According to the Guttmacher Institute, 71 pieces of legislation have been introduced in 28 state legislatures this year to outlaw or ban all abortions. All as the Supreme Court gets ready to take up Roe v. Wade this summer.
I think they'll overturn it, and I think they should overturn it. It wouldn't be a heroic act by the Supreme Court.
Do you feel like you passed your pregnancy and passed your symptoms?
Those who work at the Trust Women Clinic in Oklahoma say what they're seeing in their clinic is just a glimpse of what's to come if Roe is overturned.
It's been really hard to be kind of like a savior state for patients coming, and then just being an afterthought, like when we're facing our own bills. It's just like, where are Texans going to go? I was like, where are all the patients in Oklahoma going to go? And I think that that's really frustrating, right? If Roe falls, Kansas is the closest state for like 7 million people.
The decision hanging in the balance for the Supreme Court this year, which could make any new rules up to each state.
And Maura is here with me live now. Maura, I understand you were at that rally in Oklahoma City talking with abortion rights activists. What did they tell you today?
Well, Allison, these were women who told me that they were terrified watching their rights being stripped away in real time after living their entire life until now with that protection, with the choice
whether or not if they need to seek an abortion. And so there was a lot of frustration around this. But then we also heard from women who work at women's health providers and healthcare clinics here in Oklahoma, from Tulsa to here in Oklahoma City. I want you to hear from Marie Hoffman. She's a nurse at one of those Tulsa Planned Parenthoods, and she told me how heart-wrenching but inspiring it has been to see these Texas women traveling 5, 6, 7, 8+ hours and then doing a round trip to go back to work after getting an abortion. And she's saying that bills like these don't ban abortions, they just outsource them.
They're threatening our health care, and as we've heard before, abortion is health care, and it's our body, our choice, and they are trying to take that away from us. And frankly, it's people that don't understand what it means to be pregnant, what it means to want to choose when you're pregnant, when to start a family. It's people who don't know how much that choice means.
Ain't that the truest word? I mean, that is, that's the one thing I will never understand, really and truly I won't, because the simple fact of the matter is, how is that you're pro-life, but you're also for women's rights? I say that all the time on my social media, when I see people talking about, oh boy, we need abortion needs to be outlawed. I said, oh, so that means that you believe women shouldn't have rights. Well, I didn't say that. Well, yes, you kind of did. You really did. If you believe in it, I said that is the conundrum, isn't it? You cannot be pro-life and still be for women's rights. That's a big ass conflict. Even more so, it's like I've never understood this. Even when the entire thing about abortion was explained to me as at a very young age, that's the first thing I said was, well, if it's the woman's choice, why should it be left up to the woman? It's her body. She can choose to carry it. She can choose to carry the child. She can choose not to carry the child. But she shouldn't be shunned or judged regardless of what she wants to do because it's her choice. Found that out at 10 years old and still been sticking to it ever since. Oh, but God's against abortion. I don't think you really want to use a religion. And I sit there and tell people all the time, do you really, really, really want to use religion as your reason? Because to me, it's just like, I've always said it best, and I'll say it again. A woman's body is her choice. What the consequences and choices behind it are her own business. I will sleep soundly at night, whatever a woman decides to do with her body, because ultimately the choice is hers and nobody else's. If you don't like what a woman is doing, keep it pushing. I don't like pickles, but you don't see me going after everybody else that likes pickles. I don't like bacon on my burgers, but you don't see me going after everybody else that likes bacon on the burgers. You don't see me going after, I don't like coleslaw. I don't like potato salad. I don't like, I can keep going down the line. But here's the thing about my dislikes. For every dislike, someone does like it. And if so, cool. It's not going to affect my life. People who are against abortion should just go ahead and accept that, instead of trying to force their way of life on others, because there's a little bit of narcissism mixed with self-righteousness that's really just mixed up with a whole lot of I know better. It's like you have this little mix of religious superiority that your religion makes you better, and that's the whole problem with some of these religions, but I digress. But it's a little bit of that concoction that gives people the audacity to sit there and tell a woman what she should do with her body. And I always, always, always found that so weird that those very same people will be so-called for women's rights, which I'm going to be honest, kind of full of shit. But again, this is the world we live in. I knew the moment that the conservative Supreme Court was going to let Roe versus Wade slide. Did you not think the rest of these states were going to do the same? Oh, trust me. Just like with same-sex states, my glorious, progressively backward state of Tennessee has basically instituted a bill that could be considered legalizing child marriage. I wish I could make this up.
Republicans want to make common law marriage legal, but the bill being pushed through the legislature this week doesn't have any age requirements. Opponents say that paves the way for allowing child marriage. Action News 5's Joyce Peterson here with those details. Joyce?
Yeah, Kanji, 24 Tennessee Republicans have sponsored this bill, and it's making headlines all across the globe. Take a look. Newsweek, The Hill, even the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom, all talking about this. Folks wondering, are lawmakers in Tennessee really going to legalize child marriage?
So all this bill does.
State Rep Tom Leatherwood, the Republican from Shelby County, introduced House Bill 233, trying to legalize common law marriage in Tennessee as a pushback to the LGBTQ movement.
And if there's any hostility, it's against those people that do believe marriage comes from God, not from government, and do believe it's between one man and woman.
It's my concern to be you're changing the law because, of course, we have strict age limits on marriage in Tennessee, and I don't think we want to get away from that.
The Democrats on the panel questioned a missing critical element.
So your current language does not have an age limit. You're aware that our current law does have an age limit. You know what that age limit is.
Current Tennessee law states you can get married as young as 17 if you have parental consent. Critics worry House Bill 233, if passed, would allow child marriage or child sex abuse.
What in your legislation would stop a 16-year-old from going down with someone else to the courthouse and getting this done, since there's no age restrictions within your law?
I think it would be construed that minors would not be able to enter into this.
So it'd be assumed.
Contract.
We're going to take the assumption that they would not include minors in this.
We're making a whole bunch to do with in getting off in the weeds here, when this strictly is a form that we certainly should entitle our citizens the right to choose.
We have no age limit restriction in this legislation at all, and that's very much the problem.
All right, tonight, State Senator Ramesh Akbari from Memphis tells Action News 5 it's ugly enough Republicans are advancing an unconstitutional bill to undermine marriage equality, but the fact that this bill reopens the debate on child marriage is outrageous. Kids need time to grow and mature. Kids need to be kids, not brides and mothers. The bill passed the subcommittee and now goes before the House Civil Justice Committee tomorrow, and the full Senate takes it up on Thursday.
Y'all, again, my home state of Tennessee, progressively backwards. Keep in mind that this bill about common law marriage that Republicans are pushing through, and the Democrat, the black man with the locks, which I appreciate, representation matters, he literally sat there and said, you guys don't have an age requirement in this. And the guys, he's like, yeah, you don't have an age requirement in this. That he said, I mean, he gave a perfect example. He goes, you do know the current law that we have right now says that you have to be at least 17 with parental consent to be married in our state. The legislation that you're introducing for common law marriage means that there's no age limit requirement. And again, the guy, yeah. So really a 16-year-old, and I'm just throwing this out there. He didn't say it, but I'm going to say it. Well, if they're going by that assumption, a 15-year-old and a 30-year-old can get married. In common law marriage, a 15-year-old, 30-year-old can get married. And I love how the old white dude, well, hang on just a second. We're getting into the weeds here, okay? We're talking about a situation that won't even, we're talking about a situation that don't even happen. And we're just getting a little too far. The scary part about all this is the fact that you have old white men defending this. You have old white men defending this, defending a common law marriage bill that has no age requirement. Let me stress that again, that the bill that is currently within our Tennessee State Legislature right now, that has somehow gotten majority Republican approval, is a common law marriage that they're trying to make legal with no age requirement to basically relieve the current law, which requires to be at least 17 years old with parental consent to at least be 17 with parental consent to be married. Old white men are trying to pass this, and Colonel Sanders' cousin was like, well, we're getting into the weeds here. We don't know whether or not this is going to happen, okay? Keep in mind, we weren't too long ago. Remember the other Republican bill they tried to pass about bathrooms where you could only go into the bathrooms with the gender that you were assigned to at birth? And remember how Democrats, for me, I remember the Democrats in Tennessee were like, well, no, we can't do this. And Republicans gave this facade of, oh, well, what if a man decides that he wants to identify as a woman one day just to go into a woman's bathroom to harass little girls in there? I didn't see anybody on the Democrat side going, well, hang on a second. We're just going off into the weeds here. Republicans, Fox News, and everybody else ran with that. What if a man decided he was going to identify as a woman just to go in the women's bathroom? And Lord knows about this man being a predator that can go in there and terrorize young women. Keep in mind for the history books, there hasn't been one incident of that actually happening. But when the shoe's in their foot, Republicans are like, what's the problem? The problem is just that, yes, for the longest time, for what that's basically intending, you are basically saying, we are okay with child marriages. They do follow Elvis Presley, and Elvis Presley married his bride, and Elvis Presley found his bride at 14 years old, and yet R. Kelly's in prison. But, they can't really go after a dead king. So, but again, it's crazy that so many people see nothing wrong with this. And it's scary that even more so that it's escalating. I hope it doesn't make it into law, but if it does, I may have to think about moving. I may have to move out of state for that, because child marriages will be legal because there is no age requirement. And it's almost like we are basically saying pedophiles are welcome. And that's a scary thought in this state. But speaking of things that don't make any sense, Biden still more, and I said Biden is steady more, and I wish I could make this up, opening the checkbooks for Ukraine. How much so? Well, to the tune of almost $700 million.
I want to bring in NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman for us now at the White House. Josh, we dig a little deeper into this new military aid package that the administration is preparing. What do we know about it at this point?
Well, we know that the White House has been trying to figure out for weeks now what the next tranche of aid to Ukraine would look like. We are now hearing that it's likely to be in the neighborhood of $750 million. And will include more advanced weaponry than what the U.S. has provided to Ukraine in before. Particularly, we are hearing that it's likely to include basically drones that are ships that can go at sea without anyone piloting them, that could be used against Russian naval capabilities, as well as possibly Mi-17 helicopters, which are capable of being armed with weapons that can take out tanks, and are also already in the Ukrainian force, which means they know how to fly these things. It's not like we're giving them something they've never used before. And this aid, Aaron, is being designed to help Ukraine fight what it anticipates will be a massive new offensive in the Donbass, in the eastern region, where unlike the urban fight of Kyiv and other cities, the Ukrainians are likely to face thousands of Russian tanks in a very vast expanse, a different kind of warfare. They're going to need different type of equipment that the U.S. is looking to give them, with an announcement on that expected as early as today.
So that's the thing that bothers me. It's just that, don't get me wrong, I know Ukraine is literally and figuratively up to their ears with Russia. I get it. But I also sit there and say at the same time, it's like, leave it to America to be world police. They already gave we're pouring money into Ukraine for military, for foreign aid. And yet every American is looking at Biden like, so there's no money for us. I have been saying this once, and I'll be saying it again. Biden's going to have a hard time defending his decisions moving forward with Ukraine. He's going to have a hard time, especially around elections for his senators and representatives. They're going to have a hard time trying to explain Biden's actions in Ukraine. That he is literally helping a country by forking out money, the same money that should be used to be helping American people. And Biden's going to have a hard time defending that. The Democrat Party is going to have a hard time defending that. The Republican Party is going to use that to get votes. to get votes and turn voters. And I've been saying this for the longest time. I don't think we should have been that far. I really think it should have been a joint coalition between the United Nations to step in and help Ukraine. But again, the United States, not only financially, is not in a place to help this, but unfortunately with the military-industrial complex and the fact that it's another theater of war, that somebody in the end will be profiteering from it. And all I can sit there and say is someone has to look at Biden and say, you will eventually have to answer the American people for this. And blaming Putin for the rise of inflation when you're not doing more to hold these corporations accountable, that just ain't going to fly. But with that being said, guys, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment. Usually on How the Frack we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom sometimes. Make you want to lose your faith in humanity, but hey, it's middle of the week, it's hump day, and tomorrow's Friday Eve, so we always will leave you guys out on a good, positive note, give you at least some good vibrations. And I love this story that I do have. I love when I see Black people succeed. I am unapologetic in saying that. I love when I see Black people succeed, and this young man has definitely done just that.
Applied for admission into 27 colleges and universities.
Oh no, like being honest, I thought that all of them were reach schools. They're so difficult to get into. If I could get admission in one of them, I would have been super thankful.
Thankful 27 times over. The Panama City senior accepted into every school he applied to, including Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Duke, and MIT.
I wouldn't say that like I got used to it. Each time that I got into a new school, it was just a ton of excitement.
Jonathan's resume is stacked. He was crowned homecoming king, he's in the science club, the International Baccalaureate program, and he's on the varsity football team.
I would just say that I've been blessed with God with a lot of ability, and so, I mean, I just want to take the time and use it to the fullest extent and just affect others, positively affect them, and try and inspire other people.
In his spare time, Jonathan's managed to invent a device to help blind and deaf people communicate.
It's basically like a wrist-held device where people who are blind and deaf can facilitate their communication with the outside world, so that we're not only able to communicate with interpreters, but somebody can come up to them on the street and be able to communicate with them.
But how does one 18-year-old choose from a list of 27 schools and more than $4 million worth of scholarship money?
Right, so it's definitely been like a ton of pros and cons. I've been trying to narrow it down. I've been able to narrow it down slightly. Hopefully, sometime in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to make a pretty confident decision.
His decision-making skills so far obviously serving him well. As far as choosing a major, Jonathan says he's thinking engineering and or entrepreneurship to hopefully create those devices to help people for a major nonprofit. He's also open to creating his own major. Why not? Funnily enough, he says he's also interested in cinematic arts. Wow. Maybe.
And I always thought that part was cool, that I loved. And like I said before, I am completely unapologetic. I love seeing Black people succeed and seeing young Black people that not only can go to the higher education of their dreams, but definitely have the scholarship money, especially that amount to back it up. And again, I just want to congratulate that young man because, like I said, if he builds the next Facebook, I am not going to complain. I am going to congratulate him. Or he figures out something else, or he invents something else. He's already inventing devices at such an early age, but you love to see it. But that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is up and active. I certainly appreciate that. So shameless plugging before we get out of here, guys. I do want to shout out to my guys at Geek Salad, Ari and Geek present Geek Salad. As you can see, their YouTube page there. They also have a Facebook page. A couple of guys that I know I've come to get to know that do talk about the world of pulp culture and things outside to an unfiltered but intelligent open forum, which I have come to love and enjoy, and they are definitely funny too. So definitely check them out and like, share, and subscribe to them. Ari and Geek present Geek Salad. Also, shout out to my buddy Vaughn, who'll be coming back very soon. A. Vaughn Westbrook on Facebook and Big BZA Don on socials, where you can see all of his previous podcasts, including Smoking Trailer Sundays, and of course the RF podcast, are all available on his Facebook at A. Vaughn Westbrook, A. Vaughn Westbrook on Facebook, or Big BZA Dot on all socials. Also, as for me, guys, my IG handle, BlackBox447, you can definitely find me there. As I do post a lot of reviews, movies, television, video games, that kind of nature, and also gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. Also, at the same time, like I said before, I am all about encouraging, being positive, because we have had a rough couple of years. So hopefully in the new year 2022, well, almost not new, we're almost at the halfway point already, but we're all about moving forward, being positive, collaborating, trying to create things Basically doing it different. That's my whole thing. Doing it different than what we're used to before, because we found out that we need to grow, we need to evolve, we need to learn to humanize, we need to learn to basically be decent, be nice, because it takes 0 energy to be nice, it takes 100% of your energy to be a dick. We need to learn that there are, random acts of kindness. If you have the ability to make somebody's life great, whether it's a minute, day, an hour, or 2, go ahead and do so. The world could use more random acts of kindness. That's what it should be. Also, guys, like I said before, if you haven't already, please get vaccinated. If you haven't already done that, please wear a mask, because even though numbers are coming down, we've been here before. The only way we can beat this pandemic is to mask up, protect ourselves and each other, and eventually we will come out of this pandemic. But we cannot do it unless we all work together. That being said, guys, last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We're not trying to change minds. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information and allowing you to make up your own mind for yourself, but we're also providing a logical perspective beside it. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like elect our first Supreme Court justice, who is a Black woman. And I have so much pride when I say that. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep finding ourselves in the same situations as before. Why is everything going up but your paycheck? Why are we still electing different politicians but the same old game? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching. If you're watching some playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know what you guys think about all the stories you covered. Aside from that, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this.